Welcome back to the Wood Couture Podcast, the incredible Indian designer series, recording live here in New Delhi at the Andaz Hotel. And today we have the absolute pleasure to have another India Institute of Interior Design member, a legend, a top Hot 100 architect, Vivek Gupta. Welcome.
Thank you, Filippo. That's a nice introduction. I don't know whether hot or no, but certainly trying to do something after so many years of practice that I've been in this country. To give you a little brief introduction about myself, this is Vivek Gupta, architect. I did my graduation from Chandigarh College of Architecture. I've practiced in the city for 40 years, and that's a long time to qualify for anything, including coming for this very prestigious podcast that Filippo is doing on behalf of Triple ID. Yeah, thank you, Filippo, for having me on behalf of Wood Couture.
It's fantastic, and 35 years plus of experience. 40,
Yes, about
4 decades.
Absolutely.
Where you all started?
Yes, I started the day I graduated. There's a story oft told. Because I studied in Chandigarh. I was supposed to go for my master's to the US. My admission and everything was in place. Unfortunately, I was in Punjab and the Operation Blue Star happened. Admission in place for masters in the US, but we couldn't submit our thesis. And I was at a loss. I didn't know what to do. And those were the days of writing letters. And my prof, one of my professors under whom I'd done my thesis, he asked me if I would want to come to Delhi and start our practice. I said, certainly. That was a golden opportunity. I came to Delhi and started without any project. Started along with him. Then subsequently, he couldn't continue in the practice because of his commitments to his academia. And I carried on, sole valiant fighter, without any work, without anything that I didn't know a soul in Delhi. There were no contacts, nothing. Long story short, struggled my way, and it's been a beautiful journey, Filippo. It's really been a beautiful journey. I can reflect on each day of those 40 years and take pride in the fact that there is so much to learn, and I continue to learn till date, and so much now to give back. And I think one of the reasons that I agree to do all and every event and participate in podcasts and panels and give keynote talks is because this is high time that we give back to the fraternity, which is so ripe now to really make a mark. I keep wondering, and I keep talking to my fellow professionals, that this is time for India to take center stage in the world design scenario. We unfortunately think we're very parochial in our outlook. We still think that it's very difficult to go out and work. I have been blessed in early parts of my career also to start doing projects in Germany, Bulgaria, God-forsaken places also. We've done work in China, we did work in Turkey, in Singapore, in Nairobi, everywhere.
Dubai?
In Dubai, of course, in Kuwait, everywhere. So we've been lucky or no, but I think if you keep your mind open, your eyes open, there is opportunity everywhere. And it's for you to take cognizance of that and go grab it.
It's interesting you mentioned the word fraternity, and your very good friend Hemant, the chairman of the Triple ID, and he said, inside the fraternity, they all recognize us. The moment we step out, they don't know who we are. Why is that?
The heroes of a conference are zeros outside, I'll be honest, and I say that, because what has happened is that we are not into life-saving profession. Architecture or interior in this country is very new. It's nascent. People don't realize the value of an architect. There is a English saying which says, doctor's mistake is buried, lawyer's mistake is hanged, but an architect's mistake is monumentalized. And if an architect makes a mistake, it's going to last beyond him. It's going to stand for everybody to go and, react to it. So it's such an important profession, but still, because we are not into life-saving profession, people think that there's hardly anything that the architect has done. And interiors is the worst, because everybody and their cousins know, and thanks to the visual overload that we have today, of Pinterest, of Instagram, and just about every conceivable visual medium, which is the overload that we have. Everybody thinks that they've seen or they know, they have the knowledge, wherewithal to actually react to anything that an interior designer designs. And at the end of the project, sometimes we don't even get the due credit, because they will say, oh, my wife did this, or my daughter did this, or I did this, because I'm very involved with interiors and everything. So, that needs to change, Filippo, now in this country. I'm sure that, I do say that it's not about material alone. Interiors is also an experience. It's not just putting pretty things together or styling an interior or doing an interior with expensive material. If you design a church, it has some of the finest, most beautiful interiors. It doesn't have styling, it doesn't have fabric, it doesn't have anything. But even then, the interiors are so beautiful. It's the volume of the interior spaces, it's the lighting, it's the light which is coming there, it's the flooring, it's the material that you've used. That is what, so that creates an experience. And also, all our projects, all interiors also have to be contextual. If you're designing a hospital, you cannot make it look like a university. If you're designing a university, you cannot make it look like a mall. If you're designing a shopping mall, you cannot make it look like anything else. So that contextual interiors are extremely important. So interiors in this country is also coming of age now. People are really creating some amazing, amazing interiors. The material sensibility that is coming into this profession is very heartening for somebody like me. Certainly, yeah.
You went straight into, the very hot topic, and I wanted to ask you. You mentioned experience. In your experience, life experience, have you come across a mentor or a figure you were looking up to?
My mentor is the person, my professor, who asked me to come to. My life changed, because otherwise, he's the person who asked me to come to Delhi and start practice with him, Dr. Arvind Krishnan. My firm is called Arvind Vivek and Associates. For me, he's like a god. His name has been there from day one. He'll always be there. So, sometimes these young kids find the name a little too long. They say, why don't we call it AVA Design Studio? I said, no, for me, Arvind, the name Arvind has to be there. So he's been a mentor whose presence in whichever manner for me has been very, very inspirational. And I give all the credit, life credit, for me being an architect, sitting here in front of you, talking and giving this podcast is thanks to him.
What is the best business advice he gave you?
He told me, don't treat your profession as business. It has to be coming with a passion. Money is just a byproduct. And I honestly tell you, there is a very dirty thing that I say. I always say money is lying in the gutter. The choice is yours. You want to get down to the gutter or no. Because if you stay true to your profession, you're working with integrity, with a lot of passion, I think you are going to earn money. Money is just a byproduct of hard work. That's it.
It's interesting that, and before talking about passion, and one thing you said earlier, even in your introduction, that in today's generation, in today's world, we are overloaded with visual imagery, and why is that, and what are the consequences of that?
Good and bad, both. I would say back in the day when I started my practice, what we lacked was perhaps exposure. You always need referencing for something, I have been repeating this, that there is nothing original under the sun. God created earth, and shapes and forms and references, everything is mimicked out of that. So there is literally a biomimicry has become an abused word now, but you mimic shapes, you mimic forms, otherwise how would you know? So because of that, referencing is extremely important. And earlier, back in the day when we started practice, if we had not been exposed to kind of interior, the volumes or something like that, we wouldn't be able to reference, even the scale. If you haven't seen an atrium which is 50 storied, you would not be able to imagine, you would not be able to reference it with the issues that you have, Suddenly you've always been on dealing with a certain scale. And this is a scale where the atrium has to be imagined from bottom to top. And you have to basically always be looking, essentially when you're in the lobby from the bottom to the top, the interiors had to reflect that. When you looked from the top to the bottom, it had to reflect that way. So, the visual referencing was extremely important, or the exposure was important. Then the materiality. We were 40 years back, I think the country was going through discovering material. I think wood and cement and wood and concrete were the essential material. You would not look at any other much more. There was no faux material, as I call that, synthetic material. Plastics were not so much into use. Today, there is a material, we have enough and more material to play with. And I say that an architect, the material, the vendors who bring in material are our tools, they are our expression. How long can we be just space designers? What does an architect do? He designs a space. But I think the material becomes your expression. It's the expression that, what kind of tactile surfaces, what kind of shiny surfaces, what kind of acoustic surfaces, what kind of lighting, all of that material is your tool. So in terms of now the world has changed, the world is a complete visual medium. You have Pinterest, you have Insta, you have just overload of visual referencing. Good and the bad, in the sense that visual referencing is available to everybody, including the clients. Now, as long as the clients are being educated because of what an architect or an interior designer is giving to them, and they can actually visualize it in the true sense, and it doesn't come as a shock to them when the actual interiors are done, this is fine. But if you start carrying a Pinterest image every time without knowing the context of that image, without looking at the volume of that space that you want to reference it with, without looking at whether it's a closed space, does it get the same amount of light, does it have the same volume or no, then it becomes a problem, because they'll bring a picture and say, I want this. Can you give it to me, Vivek? And any which ways, I don't want to sound very radical, but I wouldn't react to that. I would never be able to react to that. But at the same time, I do deeply understand where they are coming from. I would not react in a negative manner. I would say, sir, this is something that you will never be able to feel proud of, because it's not something that has been created for you. It is there as a reference image. And if you are happy to be one amongst the many, it's fine. But if you have hired me as a qualified interior designer architect to do your space, let me have the freedom to do it. I do get this is your taste, which is also for a private client. When I'm doing a home, which I hardly do, or a hospitality project, then it is all right for the client to reference that this is the kind of interior he wants, because that is his personality and that's what his choice is. It gives me also a reference that, all right, I wouldn't be going wrong, that if he's looking at a very neoclassical or a classical kind of an interior, and here I am trying to do a contemporary thing for him, which he'll always feel uncomfortable, Because I also say that architecture and design is about the client and the context and obviously the climate. So the client is the most important person. He is the most important actor in my scenario. So if you can't ignore the actor, of course. So I think, yes, in that sense, good and bad, the overload is going to be dealt with sooner or later, or else we'll have to find a way of being able to, right in the beginning, when we're signing a contract, and say that please do not, give your references one. Because, see, again, the other problem that I'm facing for one of the homes that I'm doing for somebody whose office buildings, 500,000 square feet I did, he never, ever, ever showed me a picture. He never, ever asked me, what are you doing? But now I'm doing his home because I did his office. I did his office fit outs also. And then there are n number of pictures that at least his family will show. And I said, oh, but you were referencing the other picture the other day. He said, no, but we like this one also. So even a client doesn't realize that, it's like going to a store, a garment store, and liking the pink shirt also, the white shirt also, the blue tie also, and the navy trouser also. So, you like everything. But can you wear all of them together? No, you can't. So that is what is required to be told, and I think people will understand sooner or later.
Stay on the topic of digital, and obviously you described the phases, the early years of your career, and now we're talking present day. So in the early years, it was a pencil and a paper. Then the advent of AutoCAD and so forth. Now everybody talking about AI, artificial intelligence. How do you feel about that? And how is do you think AI has a role in the interiors or?
The fact that AI is a tool again for you to find a faster way of implementing your ideas. The fear is that it will get so linear. It will have no other dimension, because how does an AI function? Because if you will give certain commands, room, white light, green to look out to, shiny floor, all of that, and gives you an image, right? If everybody starts putting the same kind of a thing, there would just be variations. There could be 1,000 variations each one of us will get, but then there will be only 1,000 variations. So I do not think that AI will be having any impact for professionals, but certainly people who do not want to have a professional design in their homes will easily have AI's help to design whatever they want, because in 5 minutes it can give them a picture. I have a very interesting thing to tell you. There was a new project we are doing, a township, a large township, and when the client approached me, his project team started writing to us. And when we used to get their mail, we were so impressed. I said, this is, somebody really, really amazing, because they are going to be hard taskmasters. Whatever they are asking of us, even we need to be very careful. There's no fibbing that you can have. They know everything. They know their grain. And so we started working on that. After about a couple of weeks or so, they came to the studio. And when the client's project team came to the studio, and when they were having a conversation with us, we realized this is not the person who could have written that mail, because, and then we realized that, okay, this is ChatGPT, whatever you call. And so in a way, I interacted with them, but I didn't blame them. I said, no, it's a fantastic thing, because, using ChatGPT, using AI, using a tool of AI, they've been able to articulate what they wanted to say without, and in a perfect manner, which perhaps they wouldn't have ever been able to do that, but AI is doing the job for them. So you are the master, you're giving commands, and you have a slave, as long as that slave doesn't get EQ, So when the slave will get an emotional quotient, suddenly, and you ask them to give you sunlight outside and a green this, that, the other, and that guy starts telling you, listen, you are sitting in Finland, and in the month of December, there is no greenery outside, and shut up, So then what do you do? So this is what is going to happen at some point in time. As long as you're using that as a tool at your command, most welcome.
A man says it will never substitute human creativity.
Of course. Absolutely. You see, as I'm saying, design is an expression. That expression it gets lost when you have a translator. Like if I try to speak Italian, and some translator is going to convert my English to Italian, you will know and you will feel that it's losing that thing. It's losing the essence of it. Exactly that for me. AI is a translator of certain commands and ideas, but it can never have the warmth, the feel, the soul connect that a creative person can give. Certainly.
In the magazine featuring the Hot 100 most known
I am not
interior architect, which you're one of them. So they define you as the champion of the build to suit philosophy. Why is that?
Because architecture is a social art. It's not a personal art. It's not a private thing. You are expressing yourself for somebody, for the society, for a client. It's unlike a painter. It's my expression. Canvas is my expression. I can paint, I can get that satisfaction, and it's hanging on my wall. If somebody likes it, it doesn't affect anybody. If somebody likes it, it's not cost anybody anything. They can buy the painting, I can give the painting to them or something like that. Whereas architecture has to be built to suit. And suit whom? The client. Because he's the one who's paying money for my expression. The climate. And I emphasize so much on climate because back in this country, we have varied climate. From south to north, there is so much of climate change, climate difference that you need to create for that particular climate. All my projects, Leh, Ladakh, and northeast part of the country are very, very challenging because they have to be climatically responsive. They have to be suitable for the material that we are creating. Whereas the project that I do in Rajasthan or in Chennai or Bangalore or Bombay are climatically completely different. So I need to be very sensitive toward the climate that we are creating in. And the third is the context. So the context, if I'm, like we do all genre of work, we do institutional projects, we do township, we do housing, so each project has to have the context. And that context is extremely important. So what happens is when the client, the climate, and the context get together, it becomes a build-to-suit project. So it's not Vivek Gupta signing off as a project. It is my creativity, deal with it. No, it has to have the client's brief. It has to have the client's space program. It has to have the context of the project that is being done. And it has to take care of the climate and be climatically responsive. My building needs to sit pretty in the context, in the climate that it is in, not create a disturbance there. I do not believe in disrupting or disruptive architecture. The architecture that I do has to be very nimble, sit in the lap of the place that it is sitting in. At the same time, I do appreciate sometimes the kind of architecture. Louvre is one of my big examples, go-to example when you want to say how you can disrupt a certain, but then it has to be as beautiful as the Louvre pyramid that IMP has done, because and also the client needed to have the guts to let go of such a as in terms of construction, allow a construction of such a beautiful piece. Today, each one of us who goes to we will not get a picture in the old Louvre Museum, but we'll get a picture clicked in front of the Louvre Pyramid. So I think that's the success of a disruptive architecture that have happened.
So I like the analogy you explain about the different areas, north and south, and other part of India. So what the challenge of designing hospitality project in all these areas?
So hospitality projects, Filippo, just by the nature of the kind of project that you're doing, are you doing a city hotel? Are you doing a resort? Are you doing a hotel in what kind of a setting are you doing? Is it in a hill station? Is it a beach facing? Is it a forest hotel or a resort? So I think that, of course, that's why I'm saying the context becomes very, very important. In the context of the hospitality place that you're doing, is it a business hotel? Within a city also, things have changed today. Back in the day, a hotel meant very large area, long, big gardens and stuff like that, lovely landscape. Today you have within 1 acre. So I've created hotels with 1 acre area with 150 rooms, because you are going vertical. You can create, there are completely different, you have specialty restaurant, but there is no view. People are coming, it has to be extremely functional. The totals, we all know that, you do a 32 square meter, you're doing a 5-star hotel, it has a certain requirements. And also I think that opulence has gone out of the hospitality project. It's more about comfort. It's also about feeling at home. That feeling at home for all business hotels, because you're traveling, you don't want to feel alien when you are coming back tired after a day's meeting. You come back to a comfortable bed, want to eat good food, have ambient lighting, which is suiting you, and a good night's sleep. That's it. A nice breakfast, perhaps, yes, of course. Whereas if you're going to a resort, your expectations are completely different. What is the view? what are the rooms, what does it overlook, how's the food, what are the places to see, visit nearby. So yeah, that's the context of hospitality. So, and also then the climate, the weather, how, if you're doing a resort with cottages, how are they connected, how's the service going to be, how's the room service going to be, how long will your food get cold by the time it reaches the room. All of that has to be factored in. So hospitality, of course, is an extremely challenging project to do. Yeah, certainly. Yeah.
Um, in the last 10 years, how many of your client brief include sustainability?
Oh, I think, honestly speaking, just about everybody drops in the word sustainability, but very, very few actually go the sustainable way. In this country, I feel that the onus of creating sustainable structures still lies with the creator, with the architect. Now, I also talk about sustainability being in the DNA of an architect. It's not some points that you gather by using a local material or having a light which gets you certain points, or using a dowsing something. It's not the points. Design is about responsive architecture. That responsibility of the material usage, the lighting, the kind of local climate responsiveness, all of that makes a building sustainable. Simply by saying that I am going to get a Griha points or a LEED certification, which is going to give me a platinum certificate, but the building does not behave sustainably, or the operation cost of that building is so high, because sustainable material sometimes is not something which lasts to a greater life, unless this could be a controversial statement, Filippo, but I can qualify that, because that's when contextual sustainability becomes extremely important. I believe in vernacular architecture. All our projects in Leh Ladakh that have been done with so much of local architecture, local learning, but with the modern intervention of a research that we did over there. It is known that if, the maximum literally all the 365 days of solar power, solar energy that you can sustain to get in Leh Ladakh is amazing. So every building is generally oriented towards south, which has always been there because of the nature of build form. There was Ladakhi brick that had been made. All that was all right, because people would work with their own hands. People, if there was anything, would repair it with their own hands. Now, if I've done the assembly building and that building cannot, it's a context, it's a building, it has to have a certain grandiose, it has to have a certain scale. Now, that is the interpretation that we had, that we've also used the Ladakhi brick, but then we've used a block, and that's the Shinshak, which is a representative of Ladakhi architecture, has been used. But then we also, the assembly building, which had to have a certain look and feel, we've got an entire south side which has been punctured in the dome, because we can harness the solar energy and store that energy in the atrium of that dome. So this is the kind of learning. So that context was important. It is sustainable because it isn't done in that context. Now, if you tell me that you want to create with bamboo, and because you are in the northeast or something, but you are taking all the other material from, which is just contradictory to everything. Just the shell is made with bamboos. I don't think it makes the whole building sustainable. So it's a little abused word, but for an architect, it's in our DNA. We have to create along with the nature, along with the material that is available, and also realize that any construction activity remains the largest plunderer of natural resources. Because you're digging the earth, you are defacing the earth. So, and you are taking out the resource from the earth only. It's not coming from anywhere. So, construction activity, I think eventually sustainability will mean that going back and revisiting a thing that do we need to construct so much? Today, in the offline mode that everybody is working in, or a hybrid mode that everybody is working in, do we need to create so much of downtown areas? Do we need to create so much of offices? With so much of online business that is being done, do we need to create such hypermarkets? I think they are already started dying because people are ordering online. M-commerce is such a huge success. E-commerce is such a huge success. Why do we need to create unnecessary restaurants? Dark kitchens are working so well. So that means the real sustainability is if you construct less, and construct your space programs are not unnecessarily lavish. Your space programs are very, very reasonable and they take into factor only what you need. There is no opulence in that, I think. So that is the sustainability to me, not the most, how should I say, fashionable word of sustainability for me. Yeah.
Some critics of the interior architecture profession saying that or claims that an interior architect cannot design to budget. Is it debatable or an unconventional truth?
It's both ways. It depends. And some people have the flair only when they can create with a larger material palette, and also have that the expression, as I was saying earlier, is the material. So that becomes the expression, different material, a very large palette of colors, a large palette of so that becomes their expression. They cannot work. And I think in trying to do that, they also lose the context. Whereas, yes, some of the most beautiful Zen interiors are done with, I think monochromatic is coming back, monolithic is coming back. It's not necessary that you use multiple material. I think the calmness and beauty can also be found in just doing the floor, the walls, the furniture in stone, or doing all of that in wood, not necessarily using various materials. Being thrifty with material is also a style, and that thriftiness of material and creating frugally is I think a style, but then you need to master that style also. You can create, because otherwise it shouldn't look like nothing has been done. So that minimalism is a way of life. To me, it's the most difficult thing to do. Minimalism is an attitude. It's a sage kind of a mind. It's a hermit stage of your thinking where not only can you, it's a way of life. You cannot have a flamboyant personality and create frugally. I think I've not been able to get the two together. To me, you don't come, how do I explain it? When we're doing interiors, you have to achieve that, right from your state of mind to your material palette, to your scale, to your eventual achievement that you have, the lighting, everything becomes very important. Only then you can create frugally, you can create a Zen kind of an interior. Otherwise, one discordant note on that, it kills the whole thing, I think, yeah.
What are your proudest projects?
Each project that I do is, I have this childlike enthusiasm to do that. Because I think, Filippo, people say, what would you have been if you were not an architect? I can't think of anything else. I think the closest that I come to it is also because I feel that, and that enthusiasm leads to quick decisions. And, I'm like very, very enthused to create and see the end result. The only other thing perhaps I could have done is to be a chef where, you're still creating. You're creating with your own signature style. And there is an instant gratification. If Filippo likes what I've cooked, it's like, it's heaven for me because, you liked it. You are my client. You're liking what I'm creating and I'm happy. So it's like that for me. Every project that I do, I'm so enthused. And you know how architecture is. So many of your projects don't see light of the day for some or the other reason. But that still keeps me going, I think, because, that's that creative, that sketch initial, the brief of the client, and my excitement of creating that, putting pen to paper, and then seeing it eventually come to life is, I think, each of them has a sense of pride for me. And so I wouldn't want to signal out, and also each challenging project that we do, and also, there's a thing called that, like there's, at least for a writer's block, I also like that stage when I cannot, I cannot, that doesn't happen very often, but when I cannot, I'm not happy with something the line that I'm taking, or the route that I'm taking to create. So, because I'm a pen and paper person, I don't work on the computer. The whole difference is that there is so much of deliberation that happens when you're putting, earlier when I used to work on the drawing board, you're sticking your sheet, you're cutting your sheet, you're putting a template, you're putting a set square, and the first line that you draw, you deliberate, are you going to draw that line vertically or horizontally? Are you going to use your parallel bar or set square? That made you think about a building. Today, you start your computer, you put a line irrespective, because you can manage that. So that, I think, has also changed for somebody like me, and I'm just lost in my thought now. I don't know what.
So Hemant says that in the early part of our course, they teach students how to sketch. So how important is sketching for you, since you are pen and paper?
Sketching, obviously very, very important. It is an expression of your thought, putting your imagination onto paper, right? Also, it's like your handwriting. Some people have beautiful handwriting, some people don't have beautiful handwriting. But as long as you can put on paper what you are trying to express, it's like, all of us know English, right? We know the vocabulary, but how many of us can write a poem, right? So, because we know the same vocabulary, but when you read a poem, you will say, oh, I know this word, so you can decipher a poem, but you can't put those words in such a beautiful manner. So it's that same thing for me. I think it's an expression, every architect, as long as I can put my idea on paper, may not be a nice sketch, but it is expressive enough for somebody else to take it over as a drawing or a whatever, is very important. Yes. So sketching is also, again, there are two kinds. One is that you are sketching something that you are designing, and the other is to look at something and sketch, which is I think what perhaps Hemant meant when he spoke about that, saying that, in the early part of our career, we're taken to different sites and we're told to, okay, look at this and sketch. And everybody has their own point of view, POV, also in the terms from where you're looking at the building. Also, it gives you, when you look at other person's sketch, you see, oh, he's sitting on the other side. He's getting, the sun is coming on, shining on that object or building or whatever. He's getting different sciographies than I'm getting, different shadows than I'm getting. So that eventually and if you can actually sit down and rationalize, and an architect, it is extremely important, because it's a visual thing, very important to be able to articulate and say what is good, Like I'm sitting in this room, everybody has subjectivity. Somebody will say, yeah, I like this room. But if I ask you, Filippo, what do you like in this room? And you are able to articulate, I like the volume, I like this light, I like this texture. And when those elements, and you verbalize them, that is the time when you start getting a vocabulary of your own. When in that project, what did you like? You like this, and get them into. So next time when you are designing something, perhaps if you have that in your subconscious mind, that I had liked that, and I would like my wall to be like this, which is not copying anything, but just texturizing it or shining it or painting it or using some material is perhaps.
The day you're going to slow down or hang the boots, however you want to call it, how would you like to be remembered?
Never. No, I wouldn't. See, one thing is for sure, that each of our creation is going to outlast us. So if at all you'll be remembered because of a sensitively created building that you've done. I also like to look at the life cycle of a project. The life cycle of a project is extremely important. I'm also known, much to the chagrin of a whole lot of my fraternity people, when I say the buildings need to die. You know, not every building has to. There's a life cycle of a building. If we start preserving all the buildings, then this world will come to an end. Why would you? The buildings have a life cycle. They have a certain age, and they need to be demolished after that. They've lived their utility. They've lived their life cycle, because they'll start asking for more maintenance than they deserve. So I think so. Till whatever time that building has a life cycle which I've created, I think I'll be remembered for by the client, or the impact that it creates. We don't we tend to forget that an architect, like I was saying, his creation outlasts him. So it's a huge responsibility, and if we create a building sensitively, I think one would remember, without knowing the name, at least that building makes an impact on the surrounding. It makes the impact on the ecology. It makes an impact on the overall ecology. Then, yeah, that's what I would want to say.
So, why are Indian designers incredible?
They are, but Filippo, there is, it's time that Indian architects and designers took center stage now. I do not understand why people from all over the world are working globally, but very, very few Indian architects are working globally, which is, and I'm not talking about that, like I have mentioned to 8 countries or 10 or 15 countries. That has no meaning. Is there a building of mine which is in those countries, which is making an impact on the society over there? No, we do not have. I do not know of many architects from this country. There is nothing lacking in terms of creativity, but it's the exposure somehow. Indian architects have just not been, like the IT, look at them, yeah, all over the world, they're making so much of great impact, even artists for that matter. Is that the reason? Because I think art is global, whereas architecture is contextual. So people outside of this country feel that an Indian architect cannot create contextually for, again, that area, that culture, that climate. Is that the reason? Whereas art is global, you can take a Hussein anywhere, you can take anywhere. So, art remains global, and that perhaps is the reason. But it's time that people outside of this hall, outside of this podcast, outside of the webinars that we do, are able to impress upon the fact that in terms of creativity, there is nothing lacking. And we should be able to try and foray into countries outside of India and try and create meaningful architecture, which is a new expression perhaps. Like, again, as I say that, I work with a lot of other architects also from outside of this country. And when I look at them, looking at India with a certain eye, there is a different interpretation. There is a very different interpretation. Perhaps similarly, if an Indian is going to go and work in Italy, make a building in Italy or in France or in the US, will also look at a new perspective and create something more meaningful there. So I think this effort has to grow from the entire fraternity, and whatever at this juncture, at this stage of my career, I can contribute to, I'm very happy to do that.
So, if I put a giant white canvas on top of the Burj Khalifa, which is the tallest building on the planet, so everybody can see it, what message would you write on it?
What message would I like? I would, philosophically, I would want to say that, there is so much that you can do with the profession, because after God, architects are the creators. We create something that doesn't exist. Everybody else works on things that exist. So I think be very responsible about your creations. Be very, very create with a lot of integrity, and just enjoy that work that you're doing. but that's at the philosophical level. Otherwise, to the whole fraternity, I will say don't take yourselves too seriously. If you have fun, do it from your heart, create from your heart, and be good at it. That's it.
From the bottom of my heart, thank you very much.
Thank you, Philippa. Thank you. It's been a pleasure.